Meghan O'Connell clutched her 6-month-old daughter, Faith, as thick raindrops hammered the windshield of the taxi she'd just abandoned. Summer was supposed to be winding down gently in Seabreak City, a coastal town known for breezy boardwalks and pastel beach houses, but nature had other plans this afternoon. Streets gleamed with water and thunder rumbled in the distance. The air smelled like sea salt mixed with hot asphalt. She glanced at the time on her phone, her heart dropping. 20 minutes late for the interview at Sunlight Innovations, the one job that might finally stabilize her life. After losing her mom last year and juggling too many side gigs, she needed this break desperately. If she messed up now, she wasn't sure how she'd manage rent, let alone the diapers and formula Faith depended on. Faith whimpered, stirring in Meghan's arms. A swirl of wind caught Meghan's hair, plastering it against her damp cheeks. "I know, baby," she whispered, trying to soothe her. "Just a little farther." Her breath shuddered as she scanned the line of vehicles along the curb. Ride-shares were impossible to come by in this storm. She could barely see 3 feet ahead with all that pounding rain. Her eyes caught on a black SUV idling near a street lamp, its headlights cut through the gloom. Without thinking, Meghan splashed over, yanked the rear door open, and slipped inside, hugging Faith tight. "Finally," she breathed, pushing her soaked hair back. "Please, can we go?" She looked up, expecting to see a driver's profile. Instead, she found herself face-to-face with a man in a crisp white shirt and a charcoal suit jacket. His green eyes narrowed, clearly startled. "Excuse me," he said, voice low and edged with confusion. Meghan froze. The smell of leather and a faint whiff of expensive cologne enveloped her, far too luxurious for the average rideshare. Heat flooded her cheeks. "Oh my gosh, I am so sorry," she stammered. "I thought this was... I must have..." She fumbled for the door handle, but Faith let out a distressed cry as the baby felt the tension. It didn't help that the wind shoved the door wide open again, letting in a spray of cold rain. "Wait," the man said, leaning forward. He reached out and pulled the door shut, sealing out the storm. The interior lights glowed softly on his angular face. He spoke to the driver in front. "Clark," the driver asked, "everything okay back there?" "Give me a second, Michael," the man replied calmly, though his gaze never left Meghan. She opened her mouth to explain, but words failed. Water dripped from her jacket onto the plush seat. The man's eyebrows lifted at the crying baby and the drenched mother, and for a heartbeat, Meghan wondered if he'd call the cops or something. She wouldn't blame him for thinking she was some lunatic hitchhiker. But he merely exhaled, almost resigned. "Look, miss," he said gently, "I don't know what's going on, but you and your baby are both soaked. We can't stay in this downpour. Are you heading somewhere important?" She swallowed hard. "Yes," she managed. "Sunlight Innovations. I have an interview, was supposed to be there already, but my taxi broke down 2 blocks over, and I have no time." His expression shifted. "Sunlight Innovations?" He studied her more closely, as if searching for something familiar in her face. "You're applying there?" She nodded, clinging to Faith, whose whimpers had turned into soft fussing. "I had no clue this wasn't my ride. I'm sorry." She made a motion to open the door again, but the man shook his head. "You wouldn't get far," he said, eyeing the flooding curb. "Trust me." Meghan looked outside. Waves of rain battered the pavement. Faith sneezed, a tiny squeak that made Meghan's heart pinch. "All right," the man murmured, leaning back in the seat. "Michael, let's get out of this storm. Head toward the Shore Cafe, the one on Coral Avenue." "You got it, Mr. Pierce," the driver said, putting the SUV in gear. Meghan's heart hammered. Did she hear that name right? Clark Pierce? She was so rattled she couldn't place it, but the name tugged at her memory. She tried to calm Faith, patting her gently. "I appreciate this, but really It's fine," he said, voice calm. "We'll sort things out. It's not safe to drop you in the middle of a flooded street with a baby." His eyes flicked down to Faith. "What's her name?" "Faith," Meghan whispered, cheeks still burning. She cursed herself for this blunder. First impressions were everything, and she'd basically hijacked a stranger's SUV. He nodded, lips curving in a faint, polite smile. "Clark," he introduced himself, offering a hand. "Clark Pierce." A jolt shot through Meghan. The CEO of Sunlight Innovations was named Clark Pierce. Could there be two men with the same name in this city? She found herself staring, words tangling in her throat. "Meghan," she finally said. "Meghan O'Connell." Clark's gaze sharpened with curiosity at the mention of her name, but he only said, "Okay, Meghan, let's get you both warmed up." Outside, thunder rumbled like distant cannon fire. The SUV wove through congested streets, water splashing up in sheets. As Faith settled, Meghan silently prayed she hadn't just ruined her shot at the interview, and also wondered why Clark Pierce, if it truly was him, seemed so oddly calm about everything. She clutched Faith closer, adrenaline still making her chest tight. Something about his presence was intimidating, but also comforting, as if he were used to handling crises. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that fate had just yanked her onto a strange detour, one that might change everything. 5 minutes later, the SUV pulled up in front of a glass-front cafe perched on a slight slope overlooking the restless ocean. Rain hammered the roof, the wind rattling the sign that read Misty Shore Coffee. Clark slid out first, snapping open a black umbrella. He gave Meghan a nod, silently inviting her to follow. She braced Faith against her shoulder and stepped into the swirling gusts. The storm bit into her skin, water soaking her sneakers. Clark held the umbrella over them, though the wind still pelted her with rain from the side. They hurried into the cafe, door chiming overhead. Inside, warm air and the smell of espresso greeted them. Plush chairs sat near a window that revealed a hazy view of steel-gray waves. A single barista looked up from behind the counter, startled to see soaking wet customers. Clark gestured for Meghan to take a seat at a corner table. "Sit. I'll handle drinks." His tone brooked no argument, but it wasn't unkind. It was more like he was used to giving orders in a crisis. She settled into a chair, feeling her clothes cling uncomfortably to her body. Faith squirmed, letting out tiny baby sounds of complaint. "It's okay, sweet girl," Meghan cooed. She rummaged in her tote for a spare pacifier. Thanks to the weather, the bag's contents were half damp. As she fidgeted, she glanced around. The place was nearly empty, just a couple of high school kids tapping on laptops in a corner. No wonder they chose this spot. It was quiet and secluded, especially with a storm raging outside. After a minute, Clark returned with 2 steaming cups and a small towel the barista had lent him. "Try to dry off," he said, handing her the towel. "I got you chamomile tea. Thought coffee might be too strong after all this stress." She murmured a grateful thanks, dabbing Faith's hair first, then her own. The baby blinked, calmer now that they were out of the downpour. "So," Clark said, settling across from her, "you're interviewing at Sunlight Innovations. That means you saw the listing for our Community Innovation Hub project?" Meghan's mouth turned dry. She'd planned to meet with an HR rep, never expecting to cross paths with the company's founder, if that's indeed who he was. Her cheeks heated again. "Yes, I've got a background in data science. Or, well, I studied it in college but didn't finish. Family emergencies." She looked down, self-conscious. This was not how she'd hoped to present herself. He nodded, eyes thoughtful. "Sunlight Innovations invests in a lot of tech solutions for under-resourced communities, education apps, job training programs, microloan platforms. We're growing the hub to be a real offline center too, linking people to digital resources. We need staff who understand data, but also have a heart for social impact." His lips curved. "You said your name was Meghan O'Connell, right?" She swallowed. "Yes. My mother's name was Catherine O'Connell. Well, that's not relevant," she added quickly, realizing she was babbling. Clark tapped his fingers on the table. "And you ended up in my car by mistake, apparently." "It was a complete accident," Meghan said, forcing her shoulders to relax. "I've had the worst luck with cabs in this weather, and I can't afford to lose this chance. I'm alone with Faith, and Her voice trailed off, the confession hanging between them. For a moment, he studied her face. "This job must matter a lot to you." She let out a shaky laugh. "That's an understatement." Clark sipped his coffee. "Well, how about we treat this conversation like your interview? No reason to waste the time you set aside, and I happen to be in a position to hire for that division." "I am," he paused, "the CEO at Sunlight Innovations." Meghan's stomach flipped. So it was him. The man she'd read about in business articles, the visionary who started coding on his old laptop after shifts at the shipping docks. She'd admired that grit from afar, never expecting to meet him in a waterlogged SUV. She scrambled to compose herself. Thank you. I appreciate it. He nodded, glancing briefly at Faith, who was now dozing in Meghan's arms. Tell me more about your background. What made you interested in technology for social good? Meghan inhaled, trying to keep calm. After high school, I got into a decent college program for data science, but my mom fell sick and bills piled up. Then Faith's father, he walked away when I got pregnant. I dropped out to care for Mom, working retail to pay rent. Now that she's gone, I've been desperate to restart my career. I want to help families who can't afford to wait for a lucky break, who need direct resources. She stopped, cheeks coloring. She'd never spilled her personal story so quickly, but something about Clark's steady gaze loosened her guard. He nodded once, absorbing her words. You sound like someone who knows why we do what we do, he said. At the Hub, we'll have data analytics, but also Hansen workshops and partnerships with nonprofits. The question is, can you commit to the complexities of building that infrastructure from scratch? She gave a determined nod. I'm not afraid of hard work. If anything, it's my comfort zone. A hint of a smile flickered on his face. All right, Meghan, I like your honesty. We'll see how far that honesty goes, though. Our staff deals with real people's livelihoods. If you cut corners, it can hurt the very communities we want to uplift. That won't be an issue, she promised, lifting her chin. I've had enough corners cut in my life. He seemed to understand more than she expected, because the tension in his shoulders eased. Sunlight Innovations usually has a formal interview process, but let's say you've made a memorable first impression. He smiled at the understatement, and a spark of humor lit his gaze. We can continue the official stuff once you're dried off, but if you have questions, go ahead. Meghan's heart fluttered. She couldn't believe how this day had turned around. Actually, I do have a question, she said carefully. Is it even feasible to keep Faith with me if I get this job? I don't have many reliable sitters. Clark's face softened. We have an on-site daycare with some cutting-edge approaches, robotic interactive tablets, Hansen instructors. If you're part of the Hub team, you'll have access to that. And we can discuss flexible hours if needed. This project depends on empathy, not just coding. Emotions swelled in Meghan's chest. Relief, gratitude, and a cautious hope. She took a sip of her tea, trying to steady herself. Outside, the rain continued its relentless assault on the coastline, but in here, the warmth of possibility glowed brighter than any storm. All right, Clark said, finishing his coffee. Michael can drive us back to the Sunlight offices, or we can wait until the storm eases. Either way, I'll confirm with HR you've had your initial interview in a slightly unconventional setting. Meghan exhaled a light laugh. Unconventional's an understatement. He rose from his seat, gently rolling his shoulders. Sometimes the best things in life are unexpected. She clutched Faith close, letting his words sink in. Maybe, just maybe, she'd stumbled literally into a chance that could alter her path. The storm outside was fierce, but a flicker of optimism brightened her heart. The wind howled outside Misty Shore Coffee, rattling the windows while the rain pelted the glass like 1,000 tiny stones. Clark Pierce studied Meghan across the small table, arms folded loosely as though he was both a boss and, strangely, a confidant. The barista hovered near the counter, occasionally casting curious glances at the unusual pair. Meghan glanced at Faith dozing softly against her chest. The baby's gentle breaths reminded her of everything that was at stake. She brushed damp strands of hair behind her ears, a wave of embarrassment threatening to resurface. I can't believe I barged into your car, she said quietly, half apologizing again. Clark lifted a brow. You needed help. That was clear enough. His voice remained even, but something flickered in his eyes, compassion maybe. I've seen worse from clients who can't pay their electric bills or who lost their jobs. At least this time, it's a simple misunderstanding. Simple. Meghan nearly smiled. She wasn't sure if anything in her life was ever simple. She recalled reading about Clark's childhood working the docks in Crescent Harbor, how he'd coded at night, teaching himself everything from online tutorials. People lauded him as a brilliant disruptor in the tech field, a guy who believed profits should align with social progress. She never expected him to be so approachable. A lightning flash lit the sky, followed by a low rumble of thunder. She clutched Faith a little tighter, the baby stirring at the noise. Clark shifted his posture. "So you mentioned your mother passed away recently. I'm sorry." Meghan swallowed hard, emotion catching at her throat. "Thank you. She had a long battle with cancer. We did everything to keep her comfortable, but in the end..." Her voice trembled. "I only wish she could have met Faith properly. My mom was so excited to be a grandmother." A faint sadness crossed Clark's features. "No father around for Faith?" She shook her head. "He took off. Said he wasn't ready for that kind of responsibility." Bitterness threatened to seep into her tone, but she steadied herself. "Anyway, I realized I have to rely on my own grit to keep Faith safe and stable. That's why I'm fighting so hard for a real career." He nodded in understanding. "I can respect that. When I was a teenager, I lived on next to nothing. My family, let's just say we struggled. That's why I built Sunlight Innovations to create solutions for people who need a leg up." She'd read that story in a short profile. It felt surreal hearing it firsthand, especially now, in a quiet cafe as waves crashed in the distance. "You must be proud of how far you've come." Clark's eyes flickered, and he shrugged as if humility was a reflex. "Proud, sure, but success can be lonely. People assume you have it all figured out." He paused, glancing at Faith. "Guess you've learned that the hard way, too. Nobody has it all figured out." Meghan exhaled softly. There was a rawness to his words that made her chest tighten. She had a million doubts swirling in her mind. How to juggle a full-time job with raising an infant, how to pay next month's bills if she didn't land this role, how to prove she belonged in a tech environment after dropping out of college. But in Clark's gaze, she saw a reflection of her own desperation and resilience. After another roll of thunder, Clark tapped the side of his mug. "Now, about the position. If I place you on the Community Innovation Hub, you'll be assisting with data analytics and helping shape new educational programs. We'll be forging partnerships with local nonprofits, too." He gave a half smile. "That means you'll do a bit of everything: analysis, event organizing, maybe even teaching basic coding sessions for kids." "You up for that?" Despite her nerves, excitement flared. "Yes, absolutely," she said, leaning forward. "I've always believed technology can change lives if it reaches the right people. I'd love to be part of that." Clark drummed his fingertips on the table, as though finalizing a decision in his head. "All right, then consider yourself tentatively hired pending the official paperwork and references, of course." Meghan's heart skipped. "Seriously?" He grinned, small but genuine. "A formal interview awaits, but you have my word. Let's say we're 90% there. Just promise me you'll show the same tenacity you did stepping into my car in the middle of a storm." Her cheeks warmed. "I can do that." Faith stirred again, giving a tiny yawn. The raindrops on the window slowed, and Meghan realized the storm might be easing. Clark noticed, too, glancing outside. "We should make our move back to the office soon, before traffic gets worse." She inhaled relief. "Yes, I'll just need to..." He stood, retrieving his umbrella from the nearby chair. "I'll have Michael drop you and Faith off wherever you prefer afterward. Or if you want to see the office right now, we can do a quick walkthrough." She hesitated. Her clothes were still damp, but curiosity burned. The idea of stepping into Sunlight Innovations, discovering the place that might become her new professional home, was irresistible. "Maybe just a quick look," she said, mustering a smile. Clark nodded. "Let's head out, then." They left the cafe greeted by a drizzle rather than a downpour. The wind still carried a sharp edge, but the worst of the rain had passed. Clouds churned overhead, gray and moody, as if reminding them that storms could return any time. Michael, the driver, held the SUV door open, and Meghan slid in carefully, Faith tucked protectively against her shoulder. Clark joined them, offering a polite nod as they settled in. Once again, Meghan found herself in this sleek, high-end vehicle. This time, though, she knew exactly who the owner was and what it could mean for her future. As the SUV pulled away, the view of the ocean blurred behind streaked windows. Meghan's stomach fluttered with a mix of nerves and hope. Fate had a strange way of showing up, sometimes disguised as a simple ride in the wrong car. She couldn't predict what the next few weeks would bring, but a spark of optimism glowed in her chest. A short drive later, they arrived at Sunlight Innovations headquarters. The building wasn't the usual shiny skyscraper of big city corporate giants. Instead, it stood only a few stories high, with modern architecture featuring large windows, a solar-paneled roof, and eco-friendly landscaping along the perimeter. Even under the stormy sky, it looked welcoming, like a place built to foster creativity and collaboration. Clark led Meghan through the lobby, where the walls displayed photos of children learning on tablets, families reunited, and community events sponsored by the company. The tagline read, "Bringing light to every community." Meghan paused to absorb the images. Faith, still in her arms, gazed around with curious eyes. The baby's coos echoed softly. A couple of employees passed by, eyes flicking between Clark and the newcomer with the infant, but nobody interrupted. Clark gave her a quick tour of the main floor offices, meeting rooms, a bright open-space lounge. He pointed out a glass-walled area filled with desks and sleek monitors. "That's where some of our developers and data analysts code for our microloan platform. We also have a VR lab upstairs for educational simulations, though it's still in beta." Meghan's pulse kicked up a notch. It felt surreal, like stepping into a future she'd dreamed of, but never thought possible. She could see herself here, applying her data skills, brainstorming solutions for people who were struggling like she once did. They ended at a large window overlooking the bay. Boats bobbed on the water, rain spotting the glass. Clark turned to her, arms folded. "So I realize this is a lot to take in, but we've got a daycare center on the second floor, near our family support office. You should see that, especially since Faith will spend time there if you come on board." She nodded, letting out a shaky breath. "I want to see everything." A corner of his mouth lifted. "Then let's do it." He checked his watch. "Though maybe we should get you some dry clothes first." His gaze flicked over her soaked jacket, still dripping from the earlier storm. Heat shot to her cheeks. "Yes, that might be good," she said ruefully. "But I'm not sure where. Evelyn, my assistant, can help. She usually has a spare jacket or hoodie around. Stay here. I'll grab her." Meghan watched as he strode down the corridor. He moved with confidence, someone who'd fought his way up from nowhere. It was intimidating, but she sensed an authenticity beneath the success. She wondered if that was part of what made him so committed to helping others. Left alone, she gazed down at Faith, who gazed back with bright eyes. A wave of emotion hit her, gratitude, relief, and a trembling sense of responsibility. If she messed this up, she'd be letting her daughter down and letting herself down too. She closed her eyes, inhaling the faint smell of disinfectant and coffee that lingered in the hallway. The day had spun so wildly, from frantic chaos in the rain to standing in the HQ of a company that might just change her life. She murmured quietly, "Mom, if you can hear me, I'm trying. I'm really trying." Footsteps approached. A woman in a tailored blouse with short auburn hair appeared at Meghan's side, smiling warmly. "Hey there, I'm Evelyn. Clark said you needed a quick fix for those drenched clothes?" Meghan nodded sheepishly. "He's right. I look like a drowned cat." Evelyn laughed, soft and friendly. "We keep some spare clothing for unexpected spills or emergencies, part of being a kid-friendly workplace, I guess." She motioned for Meghan to follow. "Come on, let's see what we can do." They walked down a short hallway to a staff locker area. Evelyn opened a cabinet and pulled out a simple gray hoodie and a pair of casual black pants. "They're not fancy, but at least you'll be dry." Meghan balanced Faith on one arm, accepting the clothes with relief. "Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. I promise I'm usually more put together," she joked wryly. Evelyn gave a conspiratorial grin. "We all have our moments. Trust me. You should have seen me last month when the upstairs bathroom flooded. I ended up wearing leftover volunteer shirts for a week." Meghan giggled, a sense of camaraderie blooming. She ducked into a small changing room, carefully placing Faith in her baby carrier on a bench. While Faith stared at the overhead light, Meghan peeled off her wet outfit and slipped on the borrowed clothing, inhaling the faint scent of laundry detergent. better than walking around like a soggy sponge. When she emerged, Evelyn was rocking Faith gently and making soft cooing sounds that had the baby's lips curling in delight. "She's adorable," Evelyn said, handing Faith back with a fond smile. "And you should know, Clark rarely takes the time for personal tours like this." Meghan felt her pulse flutter. "He's been unexpectedly kind." Evelyn shrugged, a knowing glint in her eye. "He's tough, but he's got a heart for people who remind him of his younger self. Don't let the polished suit fool you." Quiet gratitude warmed Meghan's chest. "Thank you," she said again, adjusting Faith in her arms, "for everything." "Any time," Evelyn replied. "Now, do you want me to show you the daycare center?" Meghan nodded eagerly. "Yes, please." They left the staff lockers and headed toward an elevator, Faith's soft gurgles echoing in the hallway. As they rode up, Meghan caught a glimpse of her reflection in the brushed metal doors, hair still a little frizzy, cheeks pink from adrenaline. But in her eyes, she spotted a spark she hadn't seen in years. Hope. Her phone buzzed in her bag. Probably another overdue bill or a message from the landlord, she thought wryly. But for once, she didn't feel the weight crush her. Because maybe, just maybe, things were changing. She pressed a soft kiss to Faith's forehead and whispered, "We're going to be okay, baby girl." Through the elevator's glass wall, the storm clouds hung low over the sea, but the harsh rain had mellowed to a scattered drizzle. Seabreak City's coastline stretched out below, dotted with sailboats rocking in the harbor. Even with gloom overhead, it felt like a fresh start waited on the horizon. "I'm taking this chance," Meghan thought, heart thudding. "No matter what challenges come next, I'm taking it." The next morning, a soft glow of sunlight filtered through thin clouds over Seabreak City, as if the raging storm had never happened. Meghan stood at the edge of Sunlight Innovations' modern lobby, clutching a file folder and balancing baby Faith in the crook of her arm. The glass walls let in a wide view of the seaside boulevard. The faint smell of salt drifted through the building's automatically sliding doors. Meghan's heart thumped. Despite the brief introduction she'd had to the company and to its CEO just yesterday, she felt like a newcomer stepping onto a whole new planet. A hush hung over the airy space, punctuated by muted conversations and the soft tapping of heels on polished floors. A tall woman in a sleek navy dress approached, her ponytail swishing with each step. "You're Meghan O'Connell, right?" she asked warmly. "I'm Evelyn Carmichael, Clark's assistant." They had only met briefly before, but Evelyn extended a hand as if greeting an old friend. "I'm so glad you're here. Ready to see your desk?" Meghan gave a small, nervous laugh. "That'd be great. I'm not even sure where to drop Faith off yet." "Not to worry," Evelyn said with a conspiratorial smile. "We've got a top-notch daycare just down the hall. Follow me." They headed toward a wide corridor painted in soothing shades of teal and white. The building's high ceilings made Meghan feel simultaneously small and hopeful, like she'd finally stepped into the adult working world she'd always imagined. Faith stared at every light, every passing face, as if absorbing the fresh energy, too. At the end of the corridor, large windows revealed a small, cheerful daycare center. Bold letters spelled out, "Sunlight Little Innovators." The glass walls showed colorful mats, squishy chairs, and a pair of dedicated caregivers guiding toddlers through a puzzle game. Evelyn nudged open the door. "Here we are. Our daycare has a bit of a tech twist, age-appropriate apps, interactive learning corners. But don't worry, there's plenty of old-fashioned story time, too." A young caregiver wearing a pastel polo waved from across the room. She introduced herself as Alicia, bright-eyed and welcoming. "We heard Faith would be joining us. Hi, Faith." She extended her arms, letting the baby reach toward her. Faith babbled, clinging to Meghan's blouse for a moment before letting Alicia pick her up. Meghan felt a knot of anxiety ease just a bit. The daycare environment looked safe and stimulating, with bits of advanced tech sprinkled among toddler toys. One corner had a screen on the wall playing a calming ocean scene, complete with gentle wave sounds. She inhaled, wishing her own childhood had been this secure and modern. "Your desk is on the second floor," Evelyn said gently, sensing Meghan's reluctance to step away from Faith. "You can drop by any time. I promise these folks are wonderful with babies." After a soft kiss on Faith's forehead, Meghan allowed the caregiver to whisk her baby away. She felt the tug of maternal nerves like letting go of a fragile piece of her heart, but her determination to rebuild her career was stronger. She offered Faith a last encouraging smile and followed Evelyn out of the daycare, half excited and half terrified. They rode an elevator with see-through walls, which overlooked a courtyard filled with succulents and playful sculptures. The hush was broken only by a faint ping as they reached the second floor. Evelyn led Meghan through an open-concept office area partitioned by glass dividers. Overhead lights gleamed like miniature suns. "This is the Community Innovation Hub team's workspace," Evelyn explained, pointing to a cluster of workstations near a wide window. "It's more casual than other divisions. We want collaboration, so you'll see couches, standing desks, that kind of thing. Our aim is to feel welcoming for community partners, not like a stuffy corporate tower." At a desk with a brand-new laptop sat a name placard, Meghan O'Connell, Project Manager, Community Innovation Hub. Meghan's eyes widened at the label. She gingerly ran her fingers across the printed letters. She was no mere administrative assistant. Clark had placed her in a position of real responsibility. "Wow," she breathed. "Project Manager, that's a big step." Evelyn smiled. "We believe in potential. Clark saw something in you, so he's making sure you have the platform to shine. Just remember, this is a team effort. Lean on your colleagues. Don't let the title freak you out." Before Meghan could respond, a voice chimed from behind them. "Hey, new face! You must be Meghan." Turning, she spotted a man around her age, wearing a flannel shirt, jeans, and sneakers that seemed more festival-ready than office attire. His dark hair was pulled back in a low ponytail, and he had an eager grin. "I'm Miles, Outreach Specialist. Lucy and I are stoked to have you on board." "Nice to meet you," Meghan said, noticing the ease in his tone. The gentle laugh lines around his eyes. "We'll chat more soon," Miles added. "Lucy's in a meeting, but we're excited to hear your ideas. I read your brief file data science background, right?" She nodded, heart thrumming. "Yes, though it's been a while since I dug into real analytics." Miles waved it off. "No sweat. We can help you get back on track. Anyway, gotta run to schedule a community workshop. Catch you later." He hustled off, leaving Meghan blinking. Everything felt surreal. The bright open floor plan, the kind introductions, the sense that people actually wanted her here. She sank into the ergonomic chair behind her new desk, exhaling a shaky breath. Evelyn checked her watch. "Clark has a quick leadership huddle right now, but he'll probably swing by soon. In the meantime, get settled, boot up your computer. If you need anything, my desk is around the corner." "Thank you so much." Meghan attempted a smile, though her pulse still hammered with a mix of excitement and nerves. The possibility of a stable future rent paid on time, faith in a proper daycare, real career growth suddenly felt like more than a fantasy. As Evelyn walked away, Meghan stroked the edge of the desk. She took a moment to stare out the window at the shimmering ocean in the distance, gulls sweeping across the sky. The city below bustled with life, beachgoers, surfers, families strolling the boardwalk. All of it reminded her that, for once, she wasn't an outsider looking in. She glanced at the clock. Her new beginning was officially underway. Later that morning, Meghan found herself in a glass-walled conference room. The sign outside read, "Innovation Lab." Inside, large screens displayed data dashboards, budget charts, and bullet-pointed objectives for the Community Innovation Hub. She settled into a rolling chair at the long table, a little breathless from it all. Miles sat beside her, typing notes on a tablet. Across the table was Lucy, who introduced herself as the Hub's PR and marketing guru. Lucy's short platinum hair and bold red lipstick gave her an air of edginess, but her handshake was friendly enough. "All right, guys," Lucy began, tapping the screen to bring up a bright slideshow. "We're developing an online platform to connect low-income residents with job training and scholarship opportunities, kind of a one-stop digital solution. We'll also have physical workshops here at Sunlight or around neighborhoods. Meghan, we want your data expertise to figure out how to track success rates and user engagement." Meghan looked at Lucy, uncertain. "I'm happy to help, but you might need to refresh me on some modern analytics tools. I took a break from formal schooling." Lucy's grin broadened. We love teaching. You show us you can juggle a baby and a job, we can handle teaching you software updates. Right, Miles? Miles shot a thumbs up from behind his tablet. Absolutely. We've got in-house training modules if you need a crash course. Don't sweat it. As Lucy flipped through slides about upcoming deadlines and key partnerships, Meghan scribbled notes. The project plan included building awareness in local community centers, launching a pilot mentorship program for youth, and hosting an event in underserved neighborhoods. The scale amazed her, and yet everyone here seemed to believe in it wholeheartedly. Halfway through, Lucy paused with a slight frown. We do face one big challenge: budget constraints. David from the board is pushing back on anything he deems charitable with no direct ROI. He's old school, prefers immediate profit. Meghan recalled the stern man from the day before, the way he'd eyed her with skepticism. So how do we convince him this has real value? Lucy sighed dramatically. Usually Clark or the CFO handles board politics, but we can do our part by showing data-driven success stories. Hard numbers, strong community feedback, prove that investing in people eventually leads to loyal customers and social goodwill both matter to brand image. Meghan nodded, mind racing. If David was the main naysayer, it meant she'd need to gather compelling evidence. She'd have to design metrics that highlighted tangible benefits like how many participants found jobs or how many scholarships were used. A swirl of determination rose inside her. She wanted to prove she was worthy of this job, that her presence here wasn't just a fluke or some whim of Clark's. Lucy advanced the slide again. On a lighter note, we're also planning a mini tech fair at the end of next month. We'll invite local families, set up interactive demos. The rumor is Clark might even do a quanda to attract media coverage. Miles chimed in, eyes glinting. We want the kids from the outreach programs to see that tech can be fun, not intimidating. Maybe we can incorporate VR or some robotics. Show them the possibilities. Meghan's lips curved into a small smile. That sounds amazing. My daughter would love a place like that when she's old enough to explore. Lucy shared a sympathetic look. You're not alone. We want the next generation to feel included, no matter their background. They wrapped up the meeting with a checklist. Meghan would develop a preliminary analytics framework, Lucy would refine marketing angles, and Miles would coordinate with community centers for pilot sessions. Everyone seemed excited to move forward. As they left, Meghan clutched her notes like a lifeline. Lucy gave her a friendly pat on the shoulder. You'll do fine, girl. Just holler if you get stuck. Outside the conference room's glass walls, the office buzzed with activity. A group wearing matching polo shirts passed by, chatting about beta testing. The hum of talk, the slight tang of coffee, and the modern decor wrapped Meghan in a sense of purpose. She realized she was smiling genuinely for the first time in months. By mid-afternoon, Meghan was hunched over her computer, reading about the hub's history and scanning spreadsheets from an older pilot program. Faith was safe downstairs, napping or playing in daycare. Meghan's hair was still a little messy from the earlier dash across the building, but she felt too energized to care. She heard quiet voices behind her workstation divider. Two employees, presumably from another department, were conversing in hushed tones. She got hired real fast, one murmured, her voice tinged with curiosity. Like overnight. And she's got a baby, right? The other responded. You think Clark's partial to her for some reason? Could be. He's done that before, plucking people out of nowhere, but still feels unusual. A spike of discomfort ran through Meghan. She straightened in her seat, cheeks hot. She wasn't eavesdropping intentionally, but the thin partitions left no barrier to quiet gossip. She fought the urge to spin around and confront them, but uncertainty gripped her. Sure, she'd gotten hired in a whirlwind situation. She couldn't deny it looked suspicious to some. Her chest tightened at the prospect of being labeled the CEO's favorite. Memories of her father walking out, or old classmates whispering behind her back, flooded her mind with insecurities. She rubbed her temples. She needed to prove herself for Faith's sake, if nothing else. She inhaled, recalling Lucy's reassurance, Evelyn's kindness, and the official tasks Clark had assigned her. She told herself it didn't matter what random coworkers said. She had a job to do. Just then, Miles poked his head around the divider, seemingly oblivious to the gossiper's presence. Hey, Meghan? Want to grab a coffee? He noticed her stiff posture. You okay? She mustered a forced smile. I'm fine. Coffee sounds good. They headed to the cafeteria, a bright, open space with large windows framing the sea. Soft jazz played overhead. Employees from various departments mingled around. Meghan followed Miles to the counter, mind still whirling with the gossip she'd overheard. Miles grabbed an iced latte, gesturing for Meghan to order whatever she wanted. As they waited, she blurted quietly, Do people, talk about me? Because of how I got this job? He paused, eyes sympathetic. A bit, yeah. They talk about everything around here. Sunlight Innovations is great, but no workplace is free of rumors. Don't let it get under your skin. He took a sip, then added, A lot of us know Clark's story, how he picks people who have real passion, who face tough challenges. It might look like special treatment to outsiders, but it's how he's built this place. Meghan let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. I just don't want them thinking I can't handle the work. Miles gave her shoulder a reassuring pat. Show them you can. That's all there is to it. She nodded gratefully, accepting the warm coffee the barista handed over. Its fragrant steam calmed her nerves. They found a small table near the window, the sky now bright with mild sunshine. Tiny flecks of sea spray sparkled in the distance like diamonds scattered on waves. Leaning forward, Miles asked, How's Faith doing in daycare? Meghan's face softened. She seems good. I peeked in during lunch. She was giggling at some interactive toy. I'm lucky to have that resource. I bet. Not many places offer on-site childcare. Miles smiled, then his expression turned cautious. Just so you know, Lucy mentioned that David might be poking around next week. He's one of the board members who questions the hub's budget, so we'll need to be on our agame. Meghan swallowed. She remembered David's stern presence. Right. I'd like to have at least a basic analytics outline prepared before he visits, something to justify the expenses. That's exactly it, Miles said. If you need old data sets or success stories, I can pull from community partners. I've got a ton of real-life anecdotes that might help persuade him we're truly making a difference. She gave a thankful nod. That would be perfect. The more tangible, the better. They exchanged a few more details, finishing their coffees as the afternoon sunlight swept through the big windows. For a second, Meghan felt part of a team, not just a random outsider. The chatter, the warmth, the sense of shared purpose, it all cradled her fears. Back at her desk, Meghan typed away, constructing an outline for the metrics. She'd track how many participants secured jobs or scholarships, how many completed training programs, and how many returned for advanced courses. She'd also measure community satisfaction through surveys. Her head buzzed with formulas and potential data points. Late in the afternoon, footsteps approached. She glanced up to see Clark. He wore dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows. The angles of his face softened the moment he spotted her. Hey, he said, tone low to avoid interrupting the nearby employees. How's day one? She leaned back in her seat, exhaling a soft laugh. It's good busy, but good. I'm wrapping my head around the hub's scope. He nodded, gaze flicking to her screen. Putting together the analytics plan, I see. You jumped right in. She shrugged shyly. I want to show I'm serious about this, that you didn't make a mistake giving me a chance. A hint of a smile touched his lips. I never doubted that. But I appreciate the hustle. He lowered his voice. Can we talk privately for a second? Her pulse quickened. Sure. He gestured for her to follow him out to a quieter hallway near the big window that showcased the ocean. The late sunlight cast a golden shimmer on the water, highlighting every gentle wave. Clark folded his arms, looking both resolute and slightly hesitant. I wanted to check on you. I know day one can be overwhelming, new environment, new responsibilities, plus Faith in daycare. Meghan's chest tightened with emotion. She swallowed. It's a lot, but I'm grateful. You have no idea how much this means to me. His gaze softened. I have some idea. I've been there, struggling to grab any opportunity that came my way, and I see that same drive in you. He paused, glancing toward the daycare floor below. Look, If you ever need to leave early or step out for Faith, do it. Evelyn can adjust schedules. We're flexible. Thank you, she whispered, resisting the urge to hug him out of sheer relief. She kept her arms at her sides, mind racing with awkward gratitude. He studied her face, something unspoken in his eyes. Also, about the rumor mill. He trailed off. Her cheeks burned. You heard, huh? A faint smirk played on his mouth. I've been at this company long enough to know how people talk. Let them. Results speak louder than gossip. Just keep doing the work, and they'll see why I hired you. She nodded, unable to hide a slight smile. I will. I promise. The hush of the hallway felt almost intimate, accompanied by the distant hum of conversations from the main office area. For a split second, Meghan let herself marvel at how quickly her life had changed from the battered woman struggling with bills to standing in a cutting-edge tech firm, exchanging earnest words with its founder. Clark cleared his throat, tension in his jaw relaxing. Right. Well, I won't keep you. We're glad you're here. He turned to go, but she found herself speaking softly. Clark? He glanced over his shoulder. Yeah? Thank you for seeing something in me. He held her gaze, a flicker of understanding passing between them. Anytime. Then he disappeared back into a meeting room, leaving Meghan's thoughts swirling with gratitude and a strange warmth she couldn't quite name. She sighed, returning to her desk. The final hour of her shift passed in a flurry of emails, data logs, and short check-ins with Lucy and Miles. By the time she descended to the daycare to pick up Faith, she felt both mentally exhausted and oddly fulfilled. In the daycare center, Faith was wide awake and babbling at a plush robot toy. The caregivers reported Faith had eaten well and napped decently. Relief coursed through Meghan's veins. We can do this, she told herself as she cradled her daughter, who patted her cheek affectionately. Outside, the day's last sunlight stretched across the horizon, turning the sky pale orange. The smell of sea brine wafted through the building's open doorway. Meghan stepped onto the sidewalk, Faith in her arms, and breathed in the coastal air. She could taste possibility on the breeze, a sense that maybe she'd finally found a place to belong. Sure, challenges lay ahead. David's scrutiny, the gossip from co-workers, the complexities of single motherhood. But as she watched the sun dip beyond the water, she clutched Faith closer and whispered a promise. We'll make it work. For both of us. Faith cooed, gripping Meghan's collar with tiny fingers. Meghan smiled to herself. She didn't know exactly how her story would unfold, but she felt in her bones that stepping into Clark's SUV amid the storm had unlocked a path to something brighter. Maybe that path would lead to new trials, or maybe just maybe it would lead her to a life she'd barely dared to dream. Do you like shrimp? Clark's text popped up on Meghan's phone while she was wrapping up a budget spreadsheet in her cubicle. The late afternoon sun poured through the large windows, bathing Sunlight Innovations' open floor in a cozy glow. Meghan felt her pulse pick up the moment she saw Clark's name on her screen. She typed back quickly, heart fluttering. Yes, I do. Why? A few seconds later, the reply arrived. I know a quiet seafood place near the marina. Could be a good spot for dinner with Faith if you're up for it. Reading those words made Meghan's cheeks warm. She glanced around to be sure no one was peeking at her phone. Thankfully, Lucy and Miles were huddled at another workstation, debating event details. Evelyn had gone home early. The coast was clear. She tapped her reply, smiling to herself. Sounds great. I'm free after 6. Let me pick up Faith from daycare. By 6:30, the sun had dipped lower in the sky, painting Seabreak City in soft oranges and purples. Meghan held Faith on her hip as she exited the elevator. Her daughter fussed a bit from waking up after a late nap, but seemed otherwise content. At the building's glass doors, Clark was waiting, wearing a casual navy polo and khaki trousers. He looked worlds away from the intense CEO who commanded board meetings. Instead, he seemed almost relaxed. Ready? He asked softly, reaching out to tickle Faith's tiny hand. The baby gave a curious gurgle, big eyes studying him. Meghan nodded, feeling a tingle of excitement. We are. The drive to the marina took less than 10 minutes, the sky rolling into dusk. Meghan peeked out the window at rows of fishing boats bobbing by the piers, gulls circling overhead in search of scraps. A salty breeze drifted through the SUV's open windows, ruffling her hair. Faith babbled from her car seat in the back. When they arrived, Clark parked near a humble sign that read, Cora's Catch Fresh Seafood and Grill. The building's rustic wooden exterior and string lights along the roof lent it a warm, casual charm. Meghan lifted Faith from the car seat. "You come here often?" she asked Clark, noticing how he navigated the gravel lot with ease. He chuckled, holding the door open for her. "When I need a break from corporate life, yes. Cora's an old family friend. Let's see if they have a spare high chair." Inside, the restaurant smelled of lemon, butter, and a hint of sweet coconut from the tiki-inspired bar. The walls were lined with seashell art, fishing nets, and faded photos of fishermen proudly displaying their catches. A waitress with a sunny grin guided them to a booth with enough space for a high chair. Faith, still perched in Meghan's arms, made a soft squeak at the waitress. The woman laughed. "Well, aren't you precious?" Once they were settled, Faith in the high chair, Clark and Meghan scanned the laminated menus. It felt surreal to Meghan. She was out for dinner with her boss, who'd driven her here personally, and she had her daughter in tow. But the vibe was strangely comfortable, like they were two friends or a small family enjoying a casual evening. Clark pointed at the menu. "Shrimp scampi is excellent here, or their crab cakes if you want something lighter. Faith can probably share some mashed veggies or a little fish if she started solids." "Yeah, just purees and soft foods," Meghan said, focusing on Faith's wriggling arms. "But I'm sure we can find something she'll nibble on." After ordering, they sat back, letting the hum of conversation and gentle island music fill the gap. A nearby table held a boisterous group discussing fishing stories. Overhead, fans creaked lazily, stirring the mild evening air. Outside, the sky deepened to an inky navy, dotted with early stars. Meghan noticed Clark's gaze drifting to Faith. He leaned forward, wiggling his fingers near the baby's chubby hand. "She's not shy, is she?" "Not at all," Meghan laughed. "She's pretty fearless except for the vacuum cleaner. That's her arch nemesis." Clark gave a soft chuckle, and for the briefest moment, Meghan saw a flicker of wistfulness cross his face. "I always wondered what it'd be like to have a kid around," he admitted. "Growing up, my house was chaotic. My parents weren't exactly ideal role models. Maybe that's part of why I dove into work so hard." Meghan sensed the vulnerability behind his words. "I get it," she murmured. "Sometimes we pour ourselves into something we can control, especially if our family life was messy." She hesitated, but the earnest look in Clark's eyes prompted her to go on. "I never had a stable father figure either. My dad left before I turned 8, so my mom had to juggle everything. Seeing Faith now, it makes me realize how much I missed." Their eyes locked for a beat, a silent understanding passing between them. Before either could speak, the waitress arrived with bread rolls, apologizing for the slight delay on the main courses. Faith let out a contented squeal, fascinated by the basket of bread. Meghan tore off a tiny piece of the soft inside for Faith, who gnawed on it happily. As she fed her baby, Clark asked quietly, "Have you had time for yourself since Faith was born? Like actual rest or going out?" She shook her head, lips curving in a rueful smile. "Not really. It's been survival mode, work odd jobs, pay rent, keep Faith healthy. This dinner is the closest I've come to a night out in ages." He leaned forward. "Well, I'm glad you're here now, and I hope you'll find a balance soon. You deserve that." Warmth settled in Meghan's chest. "Thank you," she said softly, swallowing a lump in her throat. Just then the waitress returned with plates of shrimp scampi, garlic mashed potatoes, and a small dish of steamed vegetables that would be easy for Faith to gum on. Clark quickly cut a few veggies into bite-sized pieces, placing them on Faith's little plate. The baby squealed with glee, slapping her palms as though she sensed the excitement. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, exchanging small talk about the day's tasks, the upcoming hub project, and the random office gossip that neither of them quite knew how to navigate. Meghan found it surprisingly easy to open up to Clark, maybe because he'd already seen her at her most frantic. stepping into his SUV that stormy day. After dinner, Clark insisted on covering the check despite Meghan's polite protests. "I invited you. Let me," he said firmly. She couldn't help but notice the generosity in his eyes. They stepped outside into the balmy sea breeze. Lights from anchored boats shimmered across the harbor. Faith dozed in Meghan's arms, lulled by the calm ocean air. Clark walked them to the SUV, then paused, leaning against the passenger door. "Thanks for coming. I know it's not exactly typical for a CEO to ask an employee to dinner, especially with a baby, but I wanted to get to know you better outside the office." He gave a self-conscious half-smile. "Hope that wasn't crossing a line." Meghan's heart thumped. "You're not crossing a line. It's nice to feel normal, and you've been respectful about everything." She hesitated, then added, "I appreciate you treating me like a person, not just a staff member." He exhaled softly, relief in his posture. "Good. Let's keep it that way." The hush of the marina enveloped them. Meghan found herself yearning to say more, but she wasn't sure what. She had no illusions about how complicated a relationship with her boss could be, but in this moment, with the gentle lull of waves and Faith sleeping soundly, she felt something stirring. Trust, maybe even attraction. Clark cleared his throat. "Ready to head home?" She nodded, carefully placing Faith in her car seat. He shut the door softly, his gaze lingering on mother and child for a second. Then he slid into the driver's seat. As the SUV pulled away from Cora's catch, Meghan looked at the neon sign shrinking in the side mirror. She suspected she'd remember this simple dinner for a long time because it felt like the start of something new, something that scared and thrilled her in equal measure. The next morning, Meghan stepped into the office with Faith perched on her hip, balancing a diaper bag on her other shoulder. She tried to look composed, but the memory of last night's dinner still glowed in her mind, making her heart flutter. She dropped Faith off at daycare, gave her a quick kiss, then hurried upstairs. Lucy was already at Meghan's desk, flipping through some flyers. "Morning, sunshine," Lucy greeted, arching an eyebrow. "Heard you left with Clark last night." Her tone was teasing, but there was an undercurrent of curiosity. Meghan's cheeks went hot. "We just grabbed dinner, that's all." Lucy's grin widened. "And you took Faith along. Now that's interesting." She set the flyers down. "You're bold going out with the boss. People might talk." Meghan frowned. Her heart sank a little. She'd hoped to avoid fueling any speculation, but apparently the rumor mill was unstoppable. "He wanted to discuss project details in a casual setting, that's all," she said, trying to keep her tone light. Lucy's face softened. "I'm not judging, girl. If Clark found someone that makes him less of a workaholic, more power to him." She paused. "But you should know there are stories about him and his ex-wife, something about him putting work first. That's how it ended, apparently." Meghan swallowed, recalling bits of gossip she'd heard. "He told me they had different priorities. She wanted a flashy lifestyle, I guess." Lucy shrugged. "Who knows? But rumor says he gets pretty single-minded when chasing a goal. His ex took it personally. Now that you're close to him, maybe keep your eyes open, you know?" Meghan forced a shaky nod. "I appreciate the warning," she said quietly. Inside, her chest twisted. She didn't know how much she should let rumors shape her view of Clark, but Lucy's caution still unsettled her. Before she could dwell on it, Miles strolled over with a bright smile. "Hey, Meghan, ready for that meeting with the local nonprofit rep? We can present the digital training modules?" "Sure," Meghan said, grateful for the distraction. They headed to the conference room. On the way, a handful of employees glanced at her with half-smirks or whispered among themselves. She tried to ignore it. Lucy's comments replayed in her head Clark's ex-wife, the rumors about him overworking. Meghan reminded herself that last night had felt genuine, not forced. If Clark had changed, then maybe these rumors were just remnants of his past. Still, an uneasy tension lingered as they sat down at the large table. Miles spoke excitedly about outreach strategies to the nonprofit rep, a middle-aged woman named Harriet, who specialized in community development. Meghan contributed ideas on analytics, tracking sign-ups, measuring completion rates. She kept her voice steady, her mind half occupied by Lucy's words. "And once we get the pilot data, We'll fine-tune the user interface, Miles concluded. Harriet nodded. Sounds fantastic. I'm excited for this collaboration. Let's aim for mid-October to roll out. As the meeting wrapped up, Harriet gathered her folder. Oh, Meghan, I heard you came in with quite the splash. Something about stepping into a black SUV that turned out to be Clark's. Her tone was friendly, not malicious, but it made Meghan's stomach clench. Miles shot Meghan a playful grin. She sure did. That's how we snagged ourselves a star data whiz. Meghan mustered a laugh, though it felt hollow. Harriet wished them good luck, then left. When Miles turned back to Meghan, she exhaled. The rumor keeps spreading. He shrugged. Office talk. People will move on once they see you're doing your job well. Don't let it stress you. She nodded, but Lucy's caution and Harriet's question both echoed in her mind. She wondered how to handle the swirling curiosity about her and Clark. Keep her head down? Deny any personal involvement? That felt dishonest, especially when her feelings for him were complicatedly real. That night, after leaving Sunlight Innovations, Meghan trudged into her small apartment complex, Faith snoozing in her arms. She felt drained, mentally battered by the subtle stares and whispered remarks. Even the next big tasks for the community hub weighed on her mind, a swirl of data points she needed to finalize. She had just set Faith in her portable crib when a familiar knock sounded at the door. Zara, Meghan's friend from her old neighborhood, stood there in scrubs, her hair pulled into a loose bun. Hey, I just got off shift, Zara said, hugging Meghan. Figured I'd see how you and the peanut are doing. Meghan guided her inside. We're surviving. Faith's growing. I'm working a real job. It's all good, I guess. Zara arched an eyebrow. Only good? What's that look on your face? They perched on the couch, a mismatched piece Meghan had found secondhand. The living room smelled faintly of baby lotion and warmed formula. Faith stirred but stayed asleep, her tiny fists curled above the blanket. Meghan exhaled, letting herself slouch. Work is intense. I love the mission. But everyone's talking about how I got hired, and Clark, my CEO. We've grown close. Zara's eyes lit up with intrigue. Close how? He's kind, supportive, even took me and Faith to dinner. But some folks say he was a bad husband before, super focused on work. They warned me he might eventually neglect me or Faith. Zara studied Meghan intently. Do you trust him? Meghan hesitated, recalling the sincerity in Clark's gaze whenever he talked about the hub or about Faith's well-being. Yes, at least the version of him I've seen. He's straightforward about wanting to help, about seeing potential in me. But I'm scared. Zara reached for Meghan's hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. Scared of being left again? Or of what people at work think? Both. I can't risk my job. And I can't risk Faith's emotional well-being if he disappears. A warm empathy filled Zara's face. Look, you're an adult. You've survived heartbreak, loss, single motherhood. You're stronger than you realize. If Clark is genuine, if he respects you, it's not wrong to explore that. The only way to know is to let yourself trust a little. Meghan's throat tightened with gratitude. I guess so. Thank you, Zara. I needed that. Zara grinned. Anytime. Now let me see that baby before I go. I missed my Faith fix. They tiptoed over to the crib. Zara gently stroked Faith's cheek, cooing softly. Meghan felt a wave of tenderness. It was a reminder. She had people who cared, a child who needed her to be brave, and maybe, just maybe, a man who could share in that life. That weekend, a warm Saturday sun blanketed Seabreak City. Clark texted Meghan mid-morning, Day off. Want to take Faith to the shore? I'll bring a beach blanket. She glanced at Faith, napping peacefully, then at the weather app forecasting gentle breezes. The idea of a lazy afternoon on the sand sounded perfect. Sounds fun, she replied. By noon, they met at a quieter stretch of coastline south of the marina. The gulls wheeled overhead, occasionally diving for fish. The breeze carried the scent of salt and seaweed. Clark had staked out a spot with a large, striped blanket, an umbrella, and a small cooler, presumably with drinks or snacks. Faith squealed when her toes touched the sand. Meghan smiled, her heart swelling at how quickly the baby's curiosity lit up. Clark crouched down, letting Faith grab at the granules of sand. He laughed softly, looking more carefree than Meghan had ever seen him at the office. "How'd you find this spot?" Meghan asked, settling onto the blanket. She wore a simple tank top and light shorts, trying to beat the mild late summer heat. The breeze whipped her hair around. "I used to come here when I was starting Sunlight Innovations," Clark said, scanning the horizon. "When the pressure got too intense, I'd drive out, stare at the waves, and remind myself there's a bigger world out there than board meetings and code lines." Meghan tried to imagine a younger, more anxious Clark, standing where they were now. "It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing it with us." He gave a small nod, then quieter. "How are you coping with all the office talk? I hate that people might be making you uncomfortable." She swallowed, focusing on Faith, who was babbling happily while slapping the sand. "It's okay. I'm learning to ignore it. Lucy told me about your ex, that she claimed you were too driven for a relationship. I can't help thinking about that." Clark's expression shifted, a shadow crossing his features. "Phoebe had her reasons. We got married young. She wanted a certain lifestyle. I wanted to build something meaningful. We both handled it badly. But that was years ago, Meghan. I've changed." His voice was steady, a hint of sorrow laced with conviction. Meghan's chest tightened. "I want to believe that." He placed a gentle hand on Faith's back, glancing at the baby's bright eyes. "I wouldn't risk putting Faith in the picture if I wasn't serious about you, about giving us a real chance." A current of emotion pulsed between them. The crash of distant waves filled the pause. Meghan's heart pounded. "I'm scared," she admitted, "but I also don't want to run away from something that could be good." Clark's lips curved into a faint, hopeful smile. "Then let's take it slow, one day at a time." He turned his attention to Faith again, wriggling the baby's foot in the sand, which earned a joyous gurgle. Meghan soaked in that moment, the turquoise waves rolling in, the breeze tangling her hair, Faith's innocent laughter, and Clark's quiet determination. The fear still lurked, fear of heartbreak, of gossip, of messing up. Yet at the same time, a warm sense of possibility sparked inside her, like an ember waiting for breath to become a flame. They spent the afternoon letting Faith explore shallow surf. When the baby fussed, Clark retrieved chilled bottles of water from his cooler. At one point, he even coaxed Meghan into wading knee-deep, the ocean swirling around their legs while Faith sat in her arms, squealing whenever a small wave lapped against them. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in pink and gold, Clark helped Meghan pack up the blanket. Faith dozed off, lulled by the sun and sea air. They walked back to their cars, the hush of early evening enveloping them. Before parting ways, Clark paused. "Thank you for today," he said softly, eyes reflecting the fading sunlight. "I don't want to overstep, but I'm really glad we're doing this." She mustered a shaky smile. "Me too." And she meant it. He reached out, squeezing her hand gently. A simple gesture, but it felt intimate, like a promise whispered without words. Then he let go, stepping back to load the umbrella into his trunk. Meghan settled Faith into her car seat, heart thudding. Driving home, she couldn't stop replaying the day's tender moments. She knew challenges still lay ahead, Phoebe's lurking judgments, David's scrutiny of the project, the inevitable tension of their boss-employee relationship. But for now, she let herself savor the flutter of hope, the quiet stirring of deeper feelings. As the first stars blinked awake over the coastal skyline, Meghan turned onto her street, cradling a sense of cautious optimism in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, life was giving her a second chance at love and belonging, even if it came wrapped in complexities she'd never dreamed of facing. Late afternoon sunlight streamed through the glass lobby of Sunlight Innovations, casting long stripes across the polished floor. Meghan was juggling a stack of program flyers for an upcoming pilot workshop when she spotted a tall woman in towering heels gliding inside. The stranger had sleek black hair pulled into a stylish twist, wearing a tailored beige pantsuit that screamed expensive taste. Initially, Meghan assumed she was a visiting partner or investor until the woman locked eyes on her with unsettling precision. The woman strutted over, her expression cool as granite. "You must be Meghan," she said, voice low and deceptively calm. Meghan's heart stumbled. "Ah, yes. Do we know each other? I'm Phoebe, Clark's ex-wife." The shock nearly made Meghan drop her flyers. She felt a wave of uncertainty tighten around her lungs. She'd heard about Phoebe through office gossip, but hadn't expected an up-close confrontation. Clearing her throat, Meghan managed, "Oh, hello? Is Clark expecting you?" Phoebe's red lips twisted in a half-smile. "He doesn't know I'm here, but I doubt he'll mind too much. We have history." Her eyes flicked over Meghan's modest blouse and flats, a hint of condescension dancing in her gaze. "You're the new Wonder Girl everyone's talking about, right?" Meghan's cheeks warmed. A half-dozen employees milled about, but none seemed to catch the tension between them. "I'm just an employee," she said quietly, "working on the Community Innovation Hub." Phoebe raised a brow. "Employee, sure, but rumor says Clark's been spending plenty of time with you, even publicly." She let the words hang, heavy with insinuation. Meghan swallowed. "We collaborate on the project. And he's supportive, yes." She straightened her shoulders, refusing to cower under Phoebe's scrutiny. "Is there something specific you need? Perhaps I can let him know you're here." Phoebe gave a delicate shrug. "I'd like to have a quick chat, before you both get too entangled." Her voice softened, oddly sympathetic. "Let's step outside for a moment. We don't need a crowd." Though every instinct told Meghan to decline, she couldn't risk making a scene in front of colleagues. With a cautious nod, she led Phoebe out the doors onto the side patio, where employees sometimes took calls. A slight ocean breeze curled in the air, carrying the taste of salt. The moment they were alone, Phoebe turned, crossing her arms over her chest. "Listen, I'm not here to embarrass Clark or sabotage your job, but I've been hearing things that you and he are getting close." Her gaze cut like a blade. "He did the same with me years ago, swept me off my feet, made grand promises, but once the honeymoon glow faded, I was left in second place behind his endless work." Meghan's stomach nodded. She recalled Lucy's warnings, the rumors about Clark's past. "People change," she said softly, though doubt prickled. Phoebe's laugh was sharp. "In some ways, sure, but ambition like his isn't something he just turns off. He'll do anything for his vision, including neglect the people who love him." Her eyes flicked over Meghan, as though reading every insecurity. "I got tired of feeling like a prop in his success story. Eventually, I walked away." Meghan's heart pounded. "He told me you wanted a life of luxury, that you two had different values." Phoebe's eyes flashed. "Is that how he spins it? Well, maybe I did enjoy the perks, but I also wanted a spouse who was present, who didn't vanish into projects 24/7. Clark never could set boundaries between his work and personal life." She leaned in, voice dropping lower. "If you think he'll behave differently now just because you have a baby, you're kidding yourself." Hurt flared in Meghan's chest. This was Faith. They were talking about an innocent child who adored Clark. She felt protective, but also shaken by the possibility that Phoebe's words might hold truth. "I appreciate your concern," Meghan managed, her tone careful. "But I'm capable of making my own decisions. Clark's been nothing but supportive, both for me and my daughter. We'll figure things out." Phoebe's mouth quirked in a sad smile. "I told myself that once, too. You can't say I didn't warn you." She stepped back, smoothing her suit jacket. "Let him know I dropped by. I'll call later." And with that, she pivoted on her stiletto heels, leaving Meghan rooted to the spot. The wind picked up, ruffling the edges of Meghan's flyers, scattering one across the concrete. She snatched it before it blew away. Her hands trembled. She'd dreaded exactly this moment, meeting the ex-wife who had first-hand experience of Clark's flaws. Phoebe's words lodged in her mind like a thorn. Was Clark truly as changed as Meghan believed? Or would she eventually find herself sidelined for his all-consuming ambitions? She drew a shaky breath. The only way to know for sure was to confront him sooner rather than later. The next day, Meghan waited until early evening, after she'd finished drafting a progress report for the hub. Faith was in daycare for another hour, giving Meghan the window she needed to talk privately with Clark. She'd texted him, "Need to discuss something. Can we meet in your office at 5?" He replied yes, though his response seemed slightly puzzled. At 5:05, she knocked on his office door. The frosted glass bore his name, Clark Pierce, CEO. Her pulse hammered. She had never felt this anxious for a conversation. "Come in," he called. She stepped inside, noting how the setting sun cast long stripes across his modern desk and the framed accolades on the walls. Clark looked up from his laptop, concern etching his features the moment he saw her face. "Hey," he said gently, closing the screen. "You look tense. Everything okay?" She settled onto a chair, gripping her hands to keep them steady. "Your ex-wife was here yesterday. Phoebe." His posture went rigid, a storm flickering behind his eyes. "Phoebe showed up? Why?" "She wanted to warn me about you," Meghan said, voice trembling with a mixture of anger and hurt. "She claims you're obsessed with work. That once you got what you wanted, her support, presumably you shoved her aside." Clark stood, pacing to the window. He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I can't believe she did this. Phoebe and I haven't spoken in months." He turned, meeting Meghan's gaze. "Look, we had a messy divorce. She wanted a lavish lifestyle I wasn't comfortable prioritizing. I wanted to build something meaningful. Neither of us compromised." Meghan struggled to keep her emotions in check. "She said you neglected her, made her feel like a prop in your success story. That eventually she walked away because you never showed up for her." Clark's jaw tightened. For a moment, he stared at the city skyline outside. Then he sighed, shoulders sagging. "It's not entirely wrong, okay? I poured everything into Sunlight Innovations. Back then, I was younger, hungrier. I'd crash on the office couch, code all night, skip dinners. I thought I was doing it for us, but I never asked if that's what she wanted." His confession made Meghan's chest clench. She recalled all the subtle rumors, Lucy's caution, Phoebe's words, none of them contradicted this. "So what makes you different now?" she whispered. "I have Faith to consider. I can't let her get attached if you're going to vanish into your projects." He crossed the room, kneeling beside her chair so their eyes were level. "I'm not that man anymore," he said, voice rough with emotion. "Yes, I still care about my company passionately. But I also learned from that failed marriage. I realized ignoring personal connections leads to emptiness, no matter how successful you are." Meghan's throat felt tight. "How do I know you won't slip back into old habits when the pressure's on? The hub is expanding fast, the board can be demanding, and David's breathing down our necks." He reached for her hand, hesitating until she allowed him to hold it. "I can't promise perfection," he said softly, "but I promise transparency. If I'm getting overwhelmed, I'll tell you. If you feel neglected, call me out. We'll figure it out together like partners." A tear pricked at the corner of her eye. She hated feeling so vulnerable. My entire life, men have walked away or let me down. My dad, Faith's father, I can't survive another betrayal, and neither can my little girl." Clark's expression twisted with empathy. "I understand, and I want to be worthy of your trust. Let me prove it day by day." He squeezed her hand, sincerity radiating from his eyes. She studied him, noting the lines of regret etched into his face, the quiet determination in his voice. Slowly, she let out a shaky breath and squeezed back. "All right," she murmured, "day by day." He lifted her hand to his lips in a gentle, almost reverent gesture. Then he stood, offering her a tentative smile. "Thank you for telling me about Phoebe's visit. I'll handle that separately." Meghan nodded, a small weight lifting from her chest. Talking to him hadn't magically erased her fears, but at least she sensed genuine remorse and a willingness to change. Maybe that was enough for now. She rose, smoothing her skirt. "I should get Faith from daycare." Clark stepped closer, eyes flicking to her mouth, then back to her gaze. For a heartbeat, Meghan thought he might kiss her. Instead, he gently rested a hand on her shoulder. "We'll get through this, Meghan. I promise." Her heart fluttered, and she mustered a watery smile. "I hope so." With that, she turned and left his office, emotions swirling like an untamed tide. Still, a tiny ember of hope glowed in her chest, that maybe Clark Pierce really had learned from the past, and that she and Faith wouldn't be casualties of ambition this time. 3 days later, the board meeting loomed like a gathering storm. Meghan stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, straightening her blazer, heart pounding. Today she had to present the expansion plan for the Community Innovation Hub, specifically targeting 2 additional under-resourced neighborhoods, and David, the skeptical board member, would be there in full force. Lucy had helped Meghan assemble a polished slideshow with data points, cost projections, and stories from community members who'd benefited so far. Miles contributed outreach success metrics. But ultimately, Meghan was the face of this pitch, and if it went badly, David might pull the funding. Breathing hard, she exited the bathroom. On her way to the conference room, she nearly collided with Clark. He wore a slate-gray suit, exuding calm authority. "Nervous?" he asked, voice low. She swallowed. "You could say that." He nodded, leaning in so no one else would overhear. "Remember what we discussed. We're showing them the tangible benefits. Keep it factual but weave in the human impact. I'll back you up if David pushes too hard." "Thanks," she murmured, feeling a flicker of courage. Inside the conference room, a long oval table awaited. Several board members chatted in low tones, flipping through printed agendas. David sat near the head, posture rigid, face unreadable. He acknowledged Meghan with a curt nod when she took her seat. The meeting started with typical formalities. Then came Meghan's turn. Standing, laptop hooked to a large screen, she cleared her throat. "Thank you for your time. I'm presenting the next phase for our hub expansion, an initiative we believe will create lasting impact for 2 more underserved neighborhoods." Her voice trembled at first, but she pressed on. Slide after slide highlighted success stories. A single mother who completed an online coding boot camp and secured stable employment. A teenager who overcame struggles to earn a community scholarship for vocational training. Each anecdote was backed by data on how these personal triumphs also strengthened the local economy, people spending more, paying taxes, boosting the region's prospects. The board members leaned forward, some clearly impressed. But David's expression remained guarded. When she finished, he tapped his pen on the table, clearing his throat. "You've laid out an ambitious plan," he said, voice cool. "But your projections show a hefty budget increase. We can't keep funneling money into charity programs if there's no concrete financial return." A ripple of tension passed around the table. Meghan stood her ground. "These communities can eventually become paying customers for our platforms, small business owners, entrepreneurs, parents in need of advanced software solutions. By uplifting them now, we're fostering brand loyalty and stable economic growth. The return might not be immediate, but it's real." David arched an eyebrow. "That's speculative, Miss O'Connell. You're asking the board to trust intangible benefits. Meanwhile, our other divisions generate clear profits." Clark spoke up, tone firm but respectful. "If we only chase immediate profits, we lose the essence of Sunlight Innovations. Our mission includes social innovation, David. That's not just a slogan, it's embedded in our charter." David bristled. "I'm aware, Clark, but a line must be drawn somewhere. What if Miss O'Connell can't deliver these results?" Meghan's pulse spiked. She forced herself to maintain eye contact. "I believe in accountability. If after 6 months we don't show measurable progress, you can reevaluate the budget. But give us that time. We have partners lined up, pilot programs ready, and early indicators suggest strong community engagement." A hush followed. Tension crackled like static. Finally, an older woman on the board, Miss Harrington, spoke. "I've seen these figures. They're sound. I propose we approve a limited expansion, then review progress after 6 months." Slowly, several heads nodded. David pursed his lips. "Fine. But I'll be watching closely. No overspending. We reconvene in half a year with clear results, or I'll shut it down." Relief burst in Meghan's chest. She nodded, voice steady. "Understood." The board voted and the motion passed. Though David's reluctance was clear, Meghan and Clark exchanged a fleeting, triumphant look. It wasn't a full-blown victory, but it was enough to move forward. The day after the board meeting, Meghan was still riding the adrenaline of that partial win. She sat in her office, finalizing post-meeting reports. Faith was with Alicia in daycare, napping peacefully. Clark strolled in around lunchtime, hands in his pockets. "Got a minute?" She smiled. "Sure, always." He shut the door quietly, then leaned against it, nerves flickering in his expression. I've been meaning to talk to you about, well, something outside of the office. Meghan's pulse ticked up. Go on. He cleared his throat. I've been renovating a small house near the coast just about 20 minutes away. My dream has been to set up a home office that also helps me stay balanced, so I'm not tethered to HQ all day. His gaze flicked to Meghan. I'd like for you and Faith to consider moving in with me. Her heart jolted. She remembered hints about a new property, but hearing the invitation so directly felt surreal. Live together? Clark, we've only been seeing each other for a little while. Everything's still complicated. He nodded, brow furrowed. I know it's fast, but I can't ignore the fact that you're juggling a cramped apartment, single motherhood, and a hectic job. This house has extra rooms, a backyard with a patch of sand for Faith to play, an ocean breeze. It could be good for all of us. Emotions collided in Meghan's chest, excitement, gratitude, and alarm. This is huge, she whispered. What if it doesn't work out? Faith's already attached to you. Clark stepped closer, voice gentle. I'm aware of that risk, but I want to be there for both of you, day in and day out, not just after work or on weekends. He breathed in, shoulders tense. We can take it slow, but I'm asking you to at least consider it. Memories of Phoebe's warning flared. He's too driven. He'll let you down. Meghan's mind whirled. She pictured a quiet home by the sea, Faith toddling around, the lull of waves at night. She pictured Clark, present and engaged, yet also imagined the possibility he'd vanish into code or board meetings, leaving her lonely in a big house. Clark's hand found hers. Say the word, and I'll respect whatever pace you need, he said quietly. No pressure, but I can't pretend I don't want this. She swallowed hard. I need time, Clark. This is about Faith's stability, too. If we move in and something goes wrong, she cut off, her heart seizing at the thought of uprooting her daughter again. He nodded soberly. I understand. Take as long as you need. I'll wait. A shadow of disappointment flickered in his eyes, but he forced a small, reassuring smile. In the meantime, can I show you the house? Maybe if you see it, you'll have a clearer picture. Meghan exhaled, trying to calm the racing thoughts. Okay, show me. But I'm not saying yes yet. Relief washed over his face. Deal. She watched as he left her office, heart thudding with a blend of fear and longing. The idea of sharing a life, truly sharing it, both thrilled and terrified her. After everything, could she risk her heart and her daughter's well-being on the promise that he'd truly changed? For now, the answer remained uncertain. She stared at the screensaver of her computer, the company logo swirling across the monitor. In the reflection, she caught sight of her own worried expression. Life had thrown her so many curveballs, and yet somehow, a flicker of hope kept her anchored. Day by day, she repeated in her head. She would evaluate each step carefully, trusting in the progress she and Clark had made, hoping it was enough to carry them through the storms that might still loom on the horizon. A soft morning sun gilded the sky as Meghan navigated a winding coastal road, Faith babbling in the back seat. Crisp, late summer air filled the car through half-open windows. The ocean spread out like a shimmering expanse on her left, waves rolling with a gentle roar. She spotted Clark's SUV parked near a small cottage perched on a sandy bluff. The two-story house looked freshly painted in pale gray with white trim. Outside, Clark stood waiting, hands tucked in his jacket pockets. Meghan's heart squeezed with anticipation and a thread of uncertainty. She lifted Faith from her car seat, settling the baby against her hip, then joined Clark in the driveway. He greeted them with a tentative smile, gaze flicking from Faith to Meghan. Ready to see it? Meghan nodded, forcing a steady breath. Yes. Show us your grand vision. Clark led them up a short stone path to the front door. Seabirds wheeled overhead, and the wind carried a slight tang of salt. The contractors finished the main renovations, he explained. It's not ultra-modern, but I wanted a warm, welcoming place. Inside, the entry hall opened into a spacious living area. Light poured through tall windows, revealing a gleaming hardwood floor, fresh cream-colored walls, and an unobstructed view of the backyard where sand blended seamlessly into the property's edge. Beyond that, the ocean gleamed under the sun. Faith cooed. reaching an arm toward the window as if drawn by the sparkle of the sea. Meghan patted her daughter's back, smiling softly. She likes the view already. Clark's shoulders eased, relief dancing in his eyes. Good. He led them further in, showing a simple but functional kitchen with new appliances. Then a hallway that led to 2 guest bedrooms, freshly painted in serene coastal colors. At the end of the hall stood a master bedroom with a large window facing the ocean. "Figured I could have a home office corner here," he said, "so I can keep an eye on Faith if she's playing outside." Meghan nodded slowly, fingers trailing along the window frame. She pictured Faith toddling around the yard, digging toes into the sand, maybe building sandcastles. The house felt calm, almost protective. "It's lovely," she murmured, voice catching. "I never imagined living somewhere like this." Clark stepped closer. "If it's too much, too soon, tell me. But I want you both to feel comfortable. If we do this, it'll be our space, not just mine." She chewed her lip, heart twisting. The generosity of his offer touched her, yet the memory of Phoebe's dire warning still hovered in the back of her mind. She forced a small smile. "It's beautiful. I just need time to process." He exhaled, gaze turning earnest. "Of course." Then he offered a playful grin toward Faith, who was intently studying his face. "You approve, little one?" Faith answered by squealing and wiggling in Meghan's arms. A spark of tenderness shot through Meghan. There was no denying the bond Faith had with Clark, how easily he coaxed laughter from her. They moved outside through sliding glass doors, stepping onto a modest wooden deck. From there, a short path of stepping stones led to a patch of sand. The breeze tasted of salt and sunshine, tugging at Meghan's hair. She set Faith down carefully, letting the baby wiggle toes in the warm sand. Faith shrieked with delight, tiny fists grabbing handfuls of grains. Clark crouched beside her, a gentle smile curving his lips. "See? A built-in sandbox." Meghan's chest tightened with emotion. "It's perfect for her. She's never been this free to explore at our apartment." He rose, turning to Meghan. "I never had stability growing up," he said quietly. "This house feels like a chance to create that, not just for me, but for us." A swirl of longing and fear churned in her. She could almost see the future here, beach walks at dusk, Faith's laughter echoing against the rolling tide, and Clark by her side. If he truly balanced work with family, maybe they could find a lasting happiness. She swallowed the tangle of feelings, offering him a trembling smile. "Thank you for sharing this place with us." That was all she could manage for now. Clark seemed to understand. He brushed a soft kiss against Faith's hair, then scooped the baby up, letting her squeal with excitement at being held high. Meghan watched them, heart brimming with cautious hope. Day by day, she reminded herself. For now, the house felt like a promise of something she'd once thought impossible: stability, safety, love. By mid-September, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the coastal skyline. A gentle breeze carried the scent of fall, though Seabreak City never got truly cold. Meghan stood in her old apartment, boxes stacked around her. She scanned the bare walls, recalling all the nights she'd struggled to pay rent, the endless worry about finances. Now, she was on the verge of leaving it behind. Zara bustled in, carting a final box labeled kitchen. "This is the last one, I think." She set it down with a grin. "Hard to believe you're moving out. Must feel surreal." Meghan nodded, wiping a stray tear. "It does. I'm excited, but it's a big step." Zara patted her shoulder gently. "You're allowed to be nervous. You're taking Faith to live with your boss-turned-boyfriend in a beach house. Totally normal scenario." Meghan couldn't help but laugh. "When you put it like that, it sounds insane." Zara winked. "Insane can be wonderful sometimes." They hauled the boxes to a small rented truck waiting outside. At the back, Miles and Evelyn carefully arranged the load. Evelyn's stylish blazer looked out of place for manual labor, but she worked with surprising efficiency. "Wouldn't miss helping you guys," she said cheerfully, sliding a lamp into a nook. "We're all rooting for you." Nearby, Clark meticulously strapped in a dresser, ensuring it wouldn't shift in transit. Faith dozed in her car seat, lulled by the mild hubbub. Meghan's heart swelled at the sight of these colleagues turned friends rallying around her. Once the final items were secured, they climbed into vehicles. Clark drove the truck while Meghan followed in her car, Faith quiet and wide-eyed in the back. The caravan wound along the coastal road, the ocean shimmering under the late afternoon sun. Meghan felt a mix of excitement and dread roiling in her gut. What if this is a mistake? A small voice nagged. But another part of her whispered, you deserve a chance at real happiness. Upon arrival, the new house glowed in the soft golden light. The yard was already cleared for the furniture truck to back in. They spent the next hour unloading boxes, carrying them inside, and placing them in the designated rooms. Faith crawled around with squeals of delight, slapping her palms on the shiny floors. Amid the bustle, Meghan noticed Clark stealing glances at her, as if checking she was okay. She managed a grateful smile each time. After they set up the crib in one of the bedrooms, they took a break, gathering in the living room. Zara sprawled on the couch, panting exaggeratedly. Miles flopped onto a rolled-up rug while Evelyn sat in a folding chair, sipping bottled water. Clark appeared from the kitchen distributing sandwiches. Courtesy of the new fridge, he joked. I'd cook a feast, but we're still unpacking. They ate in companionable silence, the atmosphere warm despite the cardboard chaos. Finally, Zara stretched and stood. I have a night shift at the clinic. Gotta go. Evelyn nodded. I'll head out too. Just wanted to make sure you had the essentials set up. Miles winked at Meghan. Remember, if you need any community outreach goodies to decorate the place with old posters or leftover banners, I'm your guy. Meghan laughed. I think we'll pass on that, but thank you. With hugs and well wishes, the three friends departed. Suddenly, the house felt quiet. Faith yawned, rubbing her eyes with chubby fists, clearly exhausted from the day's excitement. I'll handle bedtime, Clark offered softly, reaching for Faith. You settle yourself. Maybe take a minute to breathe. Meghan hesitated, then handed Faith over. Her daughter nestled against Clark, an image that both melted her heart and terrified her with its intimacy. Thank you. She wandered onto the small deck off the living room, letting the evening breeze brush her face. The horizon blazed orange as the sun dipped into the sea. From inside, she heard gentle murmurs, Clark's soothing tone as he prepared Faith for bed, her soft baby coos. Meghan's heart ached with gratitude and fear. She'd never known such closeness could feel so fragile. Eventually, Clark emerged, carefully pulling the sliding door shut. She's out like a light, he whispered. Then, with a sheepish smile, how about we open a celebratory bottle of ginger ale or something? I realized I forgot to buy champagne. Meghan let out a quiet laugh. Ginger ale sounds perfect. They stood side by side in the kitchen, rummaging for glasses amidst half-unpacked boxes. Meghan found 2 mugs instead, and they clinked them with a grin. Leaning against the countertop, sipping the fizzy drink, she felt the day's tension ebb. Clark nudged her shoulder gently. You okay? She exhaled. Scared, happy, overwhelmed. His eyes softened. Me too. Then he set down his mug, gently brushing her cheek with his fingertips. But I'm all in, Meghan. Whatever it takes for us to build a real family here. Her breath caught, the simple closeness of him stirring a surge of tenderness. Slowly, carefully, he leaned in, pressing his lips to hers in a gentle kiss. It tasted of ginger and hope, and she let herself sink into that warmth, letting the worries slip away for just a moment. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers. Thank you for trusting me enough to move in. Her voice came out shaky. Thank you for not giving up when I hesitated. This is a leap of faith for all of us. He nodded, and they stood in silence, listening to the soft hush of waves outside and the quiet hum of the refrigerator. In that moment, surrounded by unpacked boxes and the promise of a new start, Meghan felt something shift inside her, an acceptance that maybe, just maybe, this could be home. Another few weeks passed in a flurry of domestic settling and project progress. Autumn breezes rustled the palm trees around Sunlight Innovations, bringing sporadic drizzles that gave way to brilliant rainbows over the sea. In the main lobby, employees chattered about the upcoming Hub Showcase, a public event celebrating the newly expanded program. Meghan paced near a large digital display table, double-checking final slides. Lucy fussed with a stack of marketing brochures while Miles played with an interactive kiosk meant to demonstrate job skills training software. "I think we're set," Lucy said, smoothing down her blazer. "David's scheduled to appear in 15 minutes. Meghan exhaled. "I'm trying not to freak out. This event's basically our final proof to the board, right?" Lucy winked. "You've got this. Just remember your data's solid and the community reps are happy. Harriet from the nonprofit is already praising your work to anyone who'll listen." True enough, Harriet stood by a banner at the front of the showcase area, speaking animatedly with a cluster of curious visitors. Meanwhile, Clark circulated among the crowd, greeting local partners and well-wishers. Meghan spotted him across the room, and their gazes met in a moment of mutual encouragement. David arrived soon after, face as stern as ever. He approached Meghan, glancing around at the displays. "Busy turnout," he said gruffly. She mustered a polite smile. "Yes, sir. We're showcasing how our new neighborhoods are responding to the hub's digital learning tools." He stared at a large monitor cycling through success stories, stats about participants who'd completed courses, found jobs, or advanced to higher training. "Impressive," he finally admitted. "I'll need to review the financial breakdown, of course." Meghan nodded. "Of course," she echoed. "We have those reports at the far table." She gestured, swallowing nerves. "We're also collecting direct testimonials today from participants. They can fill out digital surveys on site, so you'll see real-time feedback." David's brow furrowed, but there was less frost in his expression. "Show me how it works." Meghan led him to a kiosk where Lucy guided him through the user-friendly interface. As David tapped on the screen, reading real stories and rating scales, his face gradually softened. Meghan glanced anxiously at Clark, who hovered nearby. Once David finished, he turned to Clark. "It seems Miss O'Connell has delivered on her promises." A slight grunt, then he eyed Meghan. "I still prefer more immediate ROI, but I can't deny the positive impact. Congratulations, both of you." Relief coursed through Meghan like a wave. She couldn't stop a grin from stretching across her face. "Thank you," she said softly. For the first time, David offered a thin smile in return, then moved on to speak with Harriet and Miles. Clark sidled up to Meghan, placing a hand briefly at the small of her back. "Told you. Hard work pays off." She felt tears prick her eyes. "We did it." In that moment, all the late nights, the anxieties about David's disapproval, the challenges of balancing Faith's needs, it felt worth it. Clark dipped his head closer, voice low. "I'm so proud of you." And his lips twitched into a secret smile, eyes shining. "Let's talk later, okay? I have something planned." A curious flutter filled Meghan's stomach, but she only nodded. "Sure." That evening, after the successful showcase, Clark insisted they take a drive. He didn't say where, only that Meghan should bring Faith. The weather had cleared into a gorgeous, balmy twilight, the sky an ombre of pink and gold. Meghan sat in the passenger seat, Faith in the back, the air thick with anticipation. She glanced at Clark, who gripped the wheel with a strangely focused expression. After about 15 minutes, they pulled onto a secluded beach access road. A sign read, "Private Shore Sunlight Innovations Conserved Land." The sun was dipping toward the horizon, a brilliant orange disk kissing the water's edge. Clark parked on a sandy patch and turned off the engine. "Let's go for a short stroll," he said, unbuckling. Meghan got out, lifting Faith. The ocean breeze caressed their faces, carrying a faint tang of salt. They walked side by side, shoes sinking into soft, wet sand as gentle waves lapped at their ankles. The setting sun drenched the world in warm hues, gilding Faith's hair a fiery copper. Clark paused near the shoreline. The receding water left glistening patterns across the sand. He drew a shaky breath, shifting Faith to his right arm, then turned to Meghan. "I've thought about this for weeks, how best to say it." Her heart pounded. "Say what?" He exhaled, gaze flicking between her and the sea. "My life changed the day you stepped into my SUV in the rain. It felt like fate or a divine joke or something. But I've never been so grateful for a mistake." A small laugh escaped him, tinted with emotion. "You and Faith gave me a reason to see beyond my work. to believe I could be more than just a CEO obsessed with results. You made me want to be a partner, a father figure, and maybe hopefully a husband." Meghan's breath caught. Faith cooed, as if sensing the mood. With his free hand, Clark reached into his jacket pocket, producing a small velvet box. Meghan's pulse thundered in her ears. The sun's fading rays lit the tears welling in her eyes. Clark opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant ring, a solitaire diamond catching the last shreds of sunlight. "Meghan," he said, voice trembling, "I know we've both been hurt, and life isn't simple. But will you marry me? Let's build that stable, loving family we never had." Tears spilled down Meghan's cheeks, the salty breeze mixing with her trembling breath. She glanced at Faith, then at Clark's earnest face. Memories flooded her. Stepping into his SUV by accident, the cafe interview, the nights of doubt, the whispered confessions, the new home with an ocean in the backyard. It felt surreal, yet so right. "Yes," she whispered, voice breaking. "Yes, Clark, I'll marry you." A radiant joy lit up Clark's features. He carefully slipped the ring onto her finger, then, balancing Faith on one hip, drew Meghan in with his other arm. They kissed gently, laughter bubbling between them. Faith squealed, flailing tiny arms in delight, as if she understood this monumental moment. The ocean waves crashed softly, a rhythmic applause. Overhead, the sky flared crimson and gold, painting them all in a halo of warmth. Meghan pressed her forehead to Clark's, heart overflowing with gratitude and a certainty that this was no mere accident, but a destiny they forged together. They stood there as the sun sank fully below the horizon, the world bathed in twilight. Eventually, they pulled apart, holding Faith between them. The baby gazed up, eyes round with wonder, and murmured something that might have been Dada, or maybe just a babble. But the sound ignited a fresh wave of emotion in Meghan. Clark's voice turned husky. "Did she just—" Meghan nodded, tears brimming again. "I think so. She called you Daddy." Clark kissed Faith's brow, blinking rapidly to hide his own tears. "I love you both," he murmured, breath hitching. "I promise to protect this family, do whatever it takes." Meghan's heart felt ready to burst. "I love you, Clark." She glanced down at Faith, who was busy gnawing her fist in baby bliss. "And you, sweet girl, we're a family now." In the glow of that ocean sunset, with laughter and tears mingling in the salt-tinged air, they sealed their commitment. Despite life's storms, Meghan felt rooted in this moment, safe, cherished, hopeful for the bright future awaiting them. Epilogue. In the days that followed, the hub expanded with new community tech labs. David grudgingly praised the results, and wedding plans became a cheerful undercurrent at Sunlight Innovations. Meghan finally felt the promise of stability and love. She'd always craved a testament that sometimes the wildest mistakes lead to the sweetest, most unexpected joys.